Good morning. Foreign ministers of South Korea and Russia meet in Germany to discuss issues ranging from North Korea's growing nuclear ambitions to Pyongyang's growing ties with Moscow. The leaders of Russia, Ukraine, Germany, and France aim to meet in Minsk, the capital of Belarus, on Wednesday in efforts to form a peace plan for eastern Ukraine. A rally demanding collective bargaining with the HQ of the fast food franchise McDonald's as a dissatisfied union of part-time employees say we've had enough. honsu is a custom of wedding gifts and goods exchanged and given by the respective families of the bride and groom. It can get pretty pricey, but it doesn't have to be. On Korea Today, Monday, February 9th, 2015.
From Arirang News, this is Korea Today.
And good morning and welcome to Korea Today on a Monday morning. I'm Kim Min-jung with Kim Young and Seo Mi-sorang sitting in for Jin-ju, who's on vacation. Hi there. Hope
right,
you had
welcome.
a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
Well, I understand it's not the first time that you're sitting on this desk. When I was on vacation,
That's
you actually...
right. On this side, though.
All right, well, welcome. Now, you've heard of the film 국제시장, or Ode to My Father. It's, over the weekend, surpassed the 13 million mark when it comes to the tickets sold. And director Yoon Jae-gyun, also known as J.K. Yoon, and actors Kim Yoon-jin were in Germany as the film was invited to the panorama section of the Berlin International Film Festival.
Have you seen the film yet, Young?
I'm
I know
actually
your
waiting for
father's
the VOD.
been on your case
My father's been
about
on my case.
watching this film.
Every time you mention this, I would say, sorry, Dad, but I'm going to have to check that out as soon as possible.
I remember reading somewhere that the director, Yoon Jae-gyun, his father passed away when he was just in college, and his father had spent his whole life just sacrificing for his family and his work.
That's right.
So he wanted to tell the story of his father, and that really
Right.
resonated with all of our
Exactly. One of the reasons this movie is doing so well is that people of all ages can relate to this movie. People in their 70s and 80s, it's about them. People in their 40s and 50s, it's about their father. And those in their teens and 20s, it's about their grandparents. So
That's
it's
right.
a story that they can all watch and relate and see how Korea used to be so poor. But their
How
fathers
rapidly.
and the grandfathers made Korea what it is today.
That's right.
the
Kim
amazing
Yoon-jin.
story.
That's right. Kim Yoon-jin was also quoted as saying during a press briefing that this represents a very important time in the history of Korea as well.
So will you please go watch?
Yes, I will.
And
All right.
tell us
Scout's
if you
honor.
cried or not.
He will cry for a fact. All right, let us now get a check on our top stories. The foreign ministers of South Korea and Russia have sat down in Germany to discuss bilateral and regional issues, including Russia's growing ties with North Korea. On the sidelines of the Munich Security Conference in the German city on Sunday, Seoul's Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se and his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov reaffirmed their commitment to a nuclear-free Korean peninsula. Regarding the increasing high-level contact between Pyongyang and Moscow, Russia's top diplomat said his country is mindful of the conflict of interest involving the communist state. The Russian official also asked that Seoul consider accepting Moscow's invitation of President Park Geun-hye to the 70th anniversary of the Soviet Union's victory in World War II, which North Korea's leader is expected to attend. Minister Yoon replied his government is looking into President Park's schedule.
Former presidential candidate Moon Jae-in was elected as the new leader of the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy. Moon now is tasked with revamping a troubled party for two critical elections. Representative Moon, who served as the chief of staff during the late former president Roh Moo-hyun's term, won the race with 45.3% of the votes, beating out his rival, the three-term lawmaker Park Ji-won, by some 3.5 percentage points.
From this moment on, our party will renounce lethargy and factional divisions. We will move forward through change and unity, defend democracy, and work to boost the economy. I, Moon Jae-in, will reward the party by leading it to victory in the general election next year.
Moon inherits his post from interim leader Moon Hee-sang. The chairmanship was left vacant since co-leaders Kim Han-gil and An Chol-soo stepped down last July following the party's crushing defeat in the by-elections. Internal feuds have plagued the opposition since, with pundits saying the party has failed to present a clear vision of its goals. Moon, seen as a potential presidential candidate in the next election slated for late 2017, has a set of by-elections and the general elections to prep his party.
Korea has unveiled its space exploration agenda, which includes expanded investments in space launch vehicles and next-generation satellites. The Ministry of Science, ICT, and Future Planning rolled out the blueprint on Sunday, which shows that the government will increase its investment in space technology to some 347 billion won, or roughly $316 million this year. This is a 17.6% jump from last year. A hefty sum of that, or $232 million of the overall investment, will be set aside for developing homegrown launch vehicles and $85 million in expanding its satellite manufacturing capabilities.
Good morning. It's time to run through the front pages of your newspapers. And as you heard from the program's headlines, the main opposition party elected Moon Jae-in as its new chairman yesterday, providing him a second chance to lead the New Politics Alliance for Democracy. And this comes 2 years after his defeat in the country's presidential race. We'll take a look at a few more details that are on 중앙일보. And the headline says, "I will pay my respects to late President Park Chung-hee." Now, these are words of the new NPAD chairman Moon, while stressing the importance of bringing the nation together amid a rift among conservatives and liberals. Now, in particular, he said he would pay tribute to the two late presidents, Lee Seung-man and Park Chung-hee, at the National Cemetery. And this is Moon right here in this image. And in an acceptance speech, he said that he would wage a full-out war with the Park Geun-hye administration if it continues to destroy the livelihoods and economy of the people. Now, his victory has significant implications not just for his own political career, but also for the future of the main opposition party, as Moon will now be tasked with directing the party's political objectives into the 2016 general elections. And now moving on to a side article on 조선일보. We'll take a look at this one. This is about a nuclear agreement, and the header says Korea, U.S. to aim for a wrap in a nuclear accord in coming days. Now, according to a statement following a recent meeting of their foreign ministers in Germany, the two allies have announced that they would put their utmost efforts into concluding their nuclear cooperation accord following final negotiations within the upcoming few weeks. Now, the two countries are known to be in their last stages of fine-tuning details after reaching an agreement on some of the major points of the nuke accord, and they have been negotiating for more than 4 years to revise the 1974 accord over Seoul's civilian nuclear energy use. And under the revised agreement, Korea is likely to secure some autonomy in dealing with spent nuclear fuel for R&D purposes if doing so does not pose any risks of nuclear proliferation. Now we'll go on to another side article on 동아일보. And this one is about the researcher Hwang Woo-seok. It says Hwang Woo-seok to participate in joint U.S.-China research on biotechnology. Now, if you recall, Hwang Woo-seok is the man who rose to the top of his field before that whole bioethical scandal and fraud, which derailed his career more than 10 years ago. Now, after admitting his past data was faked, but also claiming he had been deceived by a fellow researcher, he was stripped of the rights to conduct stem cell research, and since then has turned his focus on cloning animals. Now, Hwang Woo-seok met with the Daily in an exclusive interview and said that leading scientists from Korea, the U.S., and China will together be embarking on a joint research of cloning as well as core biotechnology. And finally, for a wrap, we'll look at the Korea Economic Daily for another headline in the center of the front page regarding tax. And the header says corporate tax burden to increase by more than 4.6 billion US dollars this year. New analysis shows that this year's corporate tax burden for companies will realistically be increasing by more than 5 trillion won, roughly $4.6 billion compared to the year 2009 due to tax reforms. Now, what the paper is emphasizing is that the results of this analysis is contradictory to the government's claim that the burden of corporate tax would drastically decrease due to the cut rates. And that was a look at our local headlines this Monday. Now following are the stock numbers from Friday.
A large-scale protest was held over the weekend. About 100 members of the Korean Part-Time Workers Union on Saturday staged a rally by occupying 2 stores of McDonald's here in Seoul. They're demanding collective bargaining with the headquarters of the fast food giant.
That's right. In Seoul, there are over 690,000 businesses that employ part-time employees, most of whom are said to be dissatisfied with a lack of labor rights issues, including low wages, late pay, wrongful termination, and more. Let's see how the temporary workforce are responding to this growing social issue.
A branch of McDonald's located in Sinchon, Seoul. The Part-Time Workers Union has been demanding guarantees for living wages and protection of the right to work.
우리는 개개인이고 힘없는 알바고 임금도 떼어먹고 깍지를 당하는 그런 힘없는 코리였습니다.
Many ordinary citizens also participate in the protest to better protect part-time workers' right to work.
First of all, when I worked as a part-timer, there was no mention of an employment contract-related rights. Many people are not aware of the working conditions of part-time workers. Only now are these conditions being considered, and whether they are unjust or not is becoming a social issue.
The rally was organized by the Part-Time Workers Union after allegations arose about an unfair termination of a part-time worker at McDonald's last November. Lee Ga-yeon says she was unfairly fired by McDonald's.
2 or 3 days before I got fired, the scheduling manager and I had agreed to work together more in the future. And even on the day I was fired, I had received my upcoming work schedule. That was the situation I was fired in. Plus, they clearly explained that it was due to my union participation, and I replied that was unfair.
On January 27th this year, McDonald's released an official statement that Lee Ga-yeon was not wrongfully dismissed. The statement also included the food giant's position on keeping channels open for dialogue with their part-time employees. However, Ga-yeon and the Part-Time Workers Union filed for an unfair termination remedy with the Labor Relations Board. Last Thursday, the Gyeonggi-do Provincial Labor Relations Board ruled that it was not unfair termination. Following the ruling, the Part-Time Workers Union has applied for retrial. And what was McDonald's response?
회사는 아직 발생하지 않은 일에 대해 입장을 줄 수 없는 점에 대해서 우선 양해 부탁드립니다. 지난 2월 5일 경기지방노동위원회가 해당 직원의 구제 신청을 기각한 결정에 대해서 저희는 존중합니다.
According to the Korean Labor Standard Act, this is categorized as unfair termination, except when a company faces managerial difficulties or an employee damages company property. The Korean Labor Relations Board says the number of applications for an unfair dismissal remedy has increased since 2006. But the problem is that only few of them can actually receive retribution.
We know for sure that there isn't much possibility of winning this case in court. This is the same problem millions of part-time workers experience in Korea because they cannot obtain a work contract and they do not have any written evidence. They cannot receive the wages that they deserve.
Most part-time workers are teens or in their early 20s. Even if they sign a labor contract, in reality, it's difficult for them to be legally protected, as these jobs are only for a short period of time and unstable. According to Seoul City's survey on part-time workers, 36% businesses do not provide employment contracts, and over 60% did not even provide one of the 4 major social insurances. An employment contract is mandatory under the Labor Standards Act, and employers who violate it can be fined a penalty of $4,600.
Part-time jobs are considered temporary employment, so in reality, it's difficult to prove your case even with help. Not renewing the contract can be seen as termination, but it can also be seen as the employee quitting as the contract expires. So it's difficult to legally prove that it's an unfair dismissal.
Improving working conditions for part-time workers is not only an issue limited to Korea. Since 2012, the U.S. Service Employees International Union has been protesting to increase the minimum wage to $15. Part-time workers' unions around the world are demanding basic labor rights and eradicate racial discrimination. Temporary workers' rights and unfair termination have emerged as a global issue. The Korean government operates report centers to reduce maltreatment of part-time workers. Currently, over 100 centers operate in high schools across the country.
We need to do more towards educating businesses and make sure they're abiding by the Labor Standards Act. Also, we need to provide special legal aid services for part-time employees. The government runs a report center called 1318 Save Part-Time. We need to boost similar systems and operate centers catering to all part-time workers.
There are no menial jobs, and we cannot neglect the labor rights of part-time workers. It's vital that all employers abide by the law and protect the basic rights of their part-time workforce.
As we can see in the video, this weekend felt like we are smack in the middle of winter.
Yep, that's right. It was a little bit snappy over the weekend. Snappy this morning as well. For a look at today's temperature readings, we'll go to Chun Sung-cho.
Good morning,
Good morning.
Sung-cho.
Good morning, guys. Yes, just when we thought spring was right around the corner, a powerful cold snap sent the entire nation back into a deep freeze as strong, frigid air is blowing from the northwest. It remains bone-chillingly cold out here in Seoul at 13 degrees below freezing. People on the streets are bundled up from head to toe, but things are even worse toward the upper central regions. Cold wave advisories are in effect there, stretching through some parts of the northern Gyeongsangbuk-do and Chungcheongbuk-do provinces. Conditions are especially brutal up in the Taegwallyeong mountain pass in Gangwon-do province, where temperatures are hovering around negative 18 degrees, which feels like negative 27 degrees with the wind chill. Nevertheless, no matter where you are in the country this morning, you better have all parts of your body covered as much as possible on your way out. And also don't forget to keep an eye on water pipes from freezing and bursting. Temperatures are expected to warm back up closer to the seasonal average starting Tuesday. And today, the air is extremely dry all along the east coastal regions and the majority of Gyeongsangbuk-do province, with dry weather advisories being issued as well. And with that, let's take a closer look at today's temperature readings around the nation. A slightly warmer afternoon is ahead, with midday highs back above freezing all around the nation. Mercury levels will stop rising at just 1 here in Seoul and 3 in Daegu. This is all for me with the weather forecast. Back to the studio, Minjung.
Thank you, Sung-cho. We are following breaking news out of Egypt this morning. A deadly riot has broken out outside a major football stadium. We'll connect with our Eunice Kim, who's following the developments from the news center. Good morning, Eunice.
Good morning.
I understand this was after an altercation between fans and security officials.
Yeah, that's certainly what it appears, Min-jung. It was a match between Egyptian Premier League clubs Zamalek and ENPPI at the Air Defense Stadium east of Cairo. Now, details are still coming out, but Egypt's public prosecutor said at least 22 people were killed when a stampede and a following fight broke out ahead of that game between fans and police outside of the stadium. Now, it said it's launching an investigation, but security officials told media that the altercation was sparked when Zamalek fans without tickets tried to push into the stadium. Only recently have fans been allowed to attend these matches, and in smaller numbers too, 10,000 in a stadium of a capacity with 30,000 amid years of political turmoil in Egypt. Now, Zamalek fans had a different story on its Facebook page. It said the violence broke out when police only opened one narrow door for entry, later exacerbated by the use of tear gas. The country's worst ever football match violence, in fact, was just a few years ago in 2012 when similar violence had killed 74 people. And on to other news now. A diplomatic push over the weekend to find a non-military end to the Ukraine crisis has produced a date. European leaders will meet on Wednesday to discuss a potential peace plan amid ongoing fighting in eastern Ukraine. The meeting is slated to be attended by the leaders of Ukraine and Russia, backed by their counterparts from Germany and France, who have been leading these efforts to determine a workable peace plan. German Chancellor Angela Merkel and French President François Hollande met with both Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko and Russian President Vladimir Putin separately in recent days. But President Putin warned that the talks scheduled to take place in Minsk would only happen if an agreement is reached on a number of points beforehand. This as heavy fighting continues. In a strategic town in eastern Ukraine, some 170 civilians escaped to the Ukrainian capital of Kiev on Sunday, while hundreds of vehicles were seen crossing into the Russian border. More than 5,300 people have been killed by fighting between Ukrainian forces and Russia-backed rebels since April of last year.
In the meantime, Jordan continues to unleash its rage against the Islamic State group over the weekend in a series of airstrikes, and they've now hit dozens of targets.
That's right. According to Jordan's Air Force chief, he says Jordan has launched 56 airstrikes against the IS group targets since the extremist group's release of that video that showed the Jordanian pilot being slayed by fire. General Mansour al-Jabour said they targeted IS weapon depots, training centers, and military barracks, adding that revenge for the pilot, Lieutenant Muath, was still at the beginning. He estimated some 7,000 IS fighters have been killed since the start of the coalition airstrikes. This as a squadron of F-16 fighter jets from the UAE arrived in Jordan with reported plans to coordinate airstrikes against IS with Amman. Now, relatedly, Korea's broadcaster Channel A reported over the weekend that the Seoul government has confirmed that a Korean youth did in fact join the IS group through the Turkey-Syrian border. Now, citing an unnamed high-ranking official, it said authorities were trying to track the young man's location, only known by his surname Kim, and that a message has been sent requesting the release of Mr. Kim and also saying that he is young with poor judgment.
A concerning piece of news there. Thank you, Eunice, for that.
Sure thing.
And still to come on Korea Today, we are going to shift gears and check out some Tron dance or wow time with light performers rocking the stage wearing glow suits in the dark. It's going to blow you away, and we've got some more amazing videos to share with you, so don't go away.
The Hen Who Dreamed She Could Fly. Now, it's rather popular, especially because of the movie edition of the children's novel, but there's a musical version on the way, and it's already here, actually. Im Yoon-hee joins us to talk more about that. Good morning.
Good morning. So I'm sure you've used this as a bedtime story for your kids a couple times.
Yeah.
Right, so the story itself was written by author Hwang Sun-mi and written in Korean and published in 2002. Well, it became a bestseller and sold over 1.5 million copies to over 25 different countries around the world. And now the story is taken to a musical form for all you fans. Take a look. Hwang Sun-mi's children's book 마당을 나온 암탉, or The Hen Who Dreamed She Could Fly, is an award-winning bestseller. Since its publication in 2002, it's been translated into many different languages, reaching a global audience and taking on many different forms, including a movie in 2011. Now the story of this little hen takes to the stage in the form of a musical.
When we talk about imagination, people often refer to what you see in movies. But this production is just as imaginative as anything you will see on screen.
In the story, Leafy the hen wants to escape from her cage. She has dreams of living her own life, of marching to her own tune, and she wants to take her egg with her. The story is about freedom and individuality, and persevering till the end. And though it's most popular with children, the production is not just for young viewers. From singing and dancing to valuable life lessons, the story of Leafy is something we can all relate to.
The core of the story is similar to what people go through every day, so it has the potential to be a bestseller everywhere.
Leafy so desperately wants to fly, but for this hen, it's all about the journey.
Well, if I recall, the movie came out a few years ago, and it was a pretty big hit, especially with some big names that were featured.
Very popular, right? So one of the voice actors, Choi Min-sik, I know you recall, became very popular last year for his role as Admiral Lee Sun-shin in the Roaring Currents, the hit blockbuster movie. But the movie itself was, the English title is translated to Leafy, A Hen into the Wild. It's a little different than the book title, but the same story. And it was actually the most popular, highest-selling animation, Korean animation of that time.
Okay, but it's not exactly all 100% happy-go-lucky, is it?
Right. So you guys talked a little bit in the opening about, Odes to Father, the movie, 국제시장. Well, this is another story that the author wanted to write in memory of her father. She said while writing, her father was on his deathbed, and so she wanted to address this issue of death and, I guess teach it to the kids. And so accepting death, especially of a loved one. And so that's another theme you can see in this story. So as she said, when the book was being translated, she was worried about that idea being lost in translation, but it's very much still there, especially in the musical form. So for those interested, definitely family-friendly musical performance to go see.
All right, sounds great. Thank you very much, Uni, for that.
You're very welcome.
All right, stay with us on Korea Today. The dream wedding could cost quite a bit and is supposed to be one of the most important days of your life. And that dream wedding in Korea can cost a little bit extra. In Korean wedding culture, there's something called a honsu, a pre-ceremony custom of wedding gifts and goods, clothing, jewelry, furniture, household goods. The list of customary exchanges can get a little bit pricey, but not always if you know how to do it right. Get the scoop on #curiousinkorea. If you're a pet owner, you're going to be interested in this. Pet owners will soon have to pay a fine to get their missing pets back from the animal rescue centers across Seoul.
That's right. Don't lose your pet, right? The fine will apply to all rescued animals, including dogs, cats, and hamsters, and rabbits as well.
Does it include bugs as well? Insects?
I'm sure. Sami Sorang will fill us in on that. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The fine details are still being figured out, but the fine will be around $50 range. And the Seoul City government is hoping to achieve two things with these fines. One, increase owner responsibility, and two, contribute to the cost of running the rescue centers. Now, for reference, last year there were just under 10,000 animals at rescue centers across Seoul. Of those, 23%, so roughly 2,000 animals, were reunited with their original owners. So using these numbers, the Seoul City government can expect around $170,000 in revenue from fines collected. And the new ordinance, if early, will start coming into effect within the first half of this year. Now, staying on the topic of animals, but over in Gangwon-do province this time, there was a sled dog competition. The 10th annual Korea Championship sled dog race took place in Pyeongchang. Although it's titled a championship race, it was more of an amateur level meet for dogs and their owners to have some fun. There was no license necessary. The dogs could be any breed, shape, or size. The only restriction was that the dogs be older than 6 months old, and the musher or the person on the sled be older than 6 years old.
Okay, no weight limit on the mushers.
No weight limit. Nonetheless, all 40 dogs that took part in the competition sprinted as fast as they can, and they reached speeds of up to 30 kilometers per hour.
No restriction on the breed, too? You mean my poodle could have done that, too?
Yeah, my chihuahua could have done that if he was strong enough.
I think you would need at least like 20 chihuahuas to pull someone, an adult male, right?
Interesting.
Wrapping up on the entertainment front, singer-actor Park Yu-cheon of JYJ kicked off his fan meet tour across China, his first stop being Beijing. During the 2-hour fan meeting this past weekend, he sang a few songs, talked about what he's been up to lately, and read a letter to his fans. There was also a mini awards ceremony where Park gave awards to special fans, such as Best Park Yu-cheon Caricature Artist Award and 10-Year Devoted Fan Award. Now, although he had a Korean-Chinese interpreter at this fan meet, he did promise that he will try to master the Chinese language within the near future.
He is huge abroad, right? Where is he headed next? What's his path of, glory? Because people would love to see him, right?
Well, for the near future, his fan meets in China. The next stop will be in Chengdu, so 14th of January this Saturday. And following that, Shanghai on March 1st.
Wow, lots of fans looking forward to that.
I'm sure.
Thanks, Misorang.
You're welcome.
And a good Monday morning to you all as we kick things off with the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Games, where today marks the 1096, or exactly 3 years until the big event kicks off. And to commemorate the special day, there's going to be an event being held at the resort town. And a lot of hands-on events set to take place today, including a 3-kilometer mock torch relay with 60 torch bearers, with participants being allowed to try out Olympic events such as bobsleighing and cross-country skiing. And at the end of the ceremony, a time capsule will be buried with well-wishing messages for those who will compete in the games 3 years from now. Now, despite some bumps on the road, the organizing committee hopes to be on track to complete the constructions for the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Games. Now, once the 2018 Winter Games in Pyeongchang kicks off in 3 years' time, one of the events the Koreans are set to dominate in are the short track events. And the Korean dominance continued during the 5th stage of the ISU Short Track World Cup in Germany. Now, first off, over in the men's 1500-meter event, Shin Da-eun wins his 5th straight gold medal after coming in at a final time of 2 minutes 24.438 seconds as he continues his role as the ace of the men's team. And now over on the women's races, teenage sensation Choi Min-jung wins the women's 1500-meter event, followed by Olympic gold medalist Shim Seok-hee in the second race, while Kim Ah-rang wins her first gold medal this season after winning the 1000-meter event. Now, usually when it comes to short track and medals, a name that usually pops up every single time is Lee Sang-hwa. Literally every single time in the 500-meter event. But this past weekend, she almost went without a single medal for the first time in 3 years before adding a late silver in the second race. Now, after finishing the second 500-meter race of the competition at 38.21 seconds, she would add the late silver medal as fans worried whether or not her medal streak would come to an end. But despite all that, experts are getting worried that her knee condition is worse than initially thought. Of course, at the beginning of the season, the Olympic gold medalist has opted to go for physical therapy instead of getting the surgery, but it seems like the current treatment isn't as effective as Lee Sang-hwa has slowed down significantly. Now, Korea successfully hosted some of the biggest international sporting events, but the F1 Korea Grand Prix isn't one of them. After 6 years, everything is now coming to an end. The Korea Grand Prix being left off the 2015 calendar year, all signs point to the event never coming back to the nation. And with that, after 6 years, the event organizing committee has disbanded. Now, with the race taking place for the first time back in 2010, the event has lost a significant amount of money in each year the race took place, leading to the race eventually getting axed. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs. Good morning.
morning, everyone. I'm Simon O with Viral Feed. That means we're going to be having a look at what the internet community has been talking about this past week. Now, it is a really cold one out there today, but not to worry because we're going to heat things up with some really hot stories. I'm very excited. So let's get right into our first one. Now, Tron. This revolutionary sci-fi movie, you've probably seen at least parts of it. The story, nothing to write home about. But the visuals of both the original and the remake version of the film are breathtaking. And now we're gonna take a look at some dancers who take those visuals and turn it into something even more. Let's have a look. A little man appears on a dark stage, and look at this. Did he just copy himself? Is he teleporting? Look at the visuals here, guys. Can you believe it? I mean, the dance moves themselves are pretty impressive on their own, but look at what they managed with the synchronized lights and the choreography. I could scarcely believe this. I've seen this about a dozen times now, and it still makes my jaw drop. Look at these moves.
And seeing it live would be another experience.
Can you imagine just all that happening on a dark stage?
Exactly. It has to be very popular.
Yeah, now as if that weren't impressive enough, this time we see Korean dancers adding elements of traditional Korean music and dance. Look at what they do with the fans here.
Wow.
I could have sworn that they were holding onto those fans themselves, but obviously something else is going on.
Floating in the air.
I mean, aside from the choreography, can you imagine the amount of effort it must take to synchronize the moves with all the different lights?
Very creative.
It's just, unbelievable. Sometimes I just feel super lucky that there are so many diligent, hardworking, talented people to provide stuff like this for me to watch and enjoy. Because as I mentioned before, as far as dancing goes, all I can do is the log. This is about it.
As far as all this goes, this is for your entertainment only, right?
Well, I like to think of it that way. I did share, though. Let's keep that in mind. Alrighty, let's move on to our second story. We take a look here on Viral Feed each week at some of Korea's best advertising. I have a selection of little vignettes or stories today, and I want you to see if you can guess what the ad is for. Let's have a look. Now, this poor fellow is in a bit of a rush. He's late to work, and it looks like he may have drank a little too heavily last night. Right away, he gets an earful from the boss. It is not a good start to the week. Poor guy. Can you feel his pain? As if going to work weren't enough? But then, as soon as he sits down, look at the change in his condition. Much better, right? What's going on? Now this time, a fellow coworker asks for a favor, but apparently it doesn't look like it's a welcome one. But as she sits down again, the atmosphere immediately changes. Things get a little bit more romantic. Any guesses so far, you guys?
It's gotta be the chair.
Very comfortable
The answer
chair.
is
Very
in the
smart
chair,
guess.
I'm
For the others who haven't gotten it yet, here's one final episode. The boss stays at work late and decides to take maybe a 5-minute cat nap because there is so much to do even after ordinary working hours. So he lays back, but then all of a sudden it's the next morning. How did that happen?
A really comfortable chair.
Yeah, you guys have got it. It was an ad for this chair, which, by the way, I have something very similar at my desk, and it is very conducive to napping. I find I do that a lot during the workday, but don't let my boss know about it. Alrighty, that's our ad for this week. Let's move on to our third story. Now, you would think that for most people, roller coasters are thrilling enough as they are, because that's what they're meant to do. But apparently, the guy in our next clip thought otherwise, and he decided maybe he could add a little more to the excitement. Let's have a look. Now, ever since the first one was opened to the public on Coney Island in 1884, roller coasters have been a favorite among thrill seekers all over the world. But here's a guy who decided to take a different approach. You ready for this? He takes a motorcycle to the roller coaster rails. Take a look at this. And as if just going on the rails wasn't enough, he pops wheelies front and back. He flips over. Look at this guy's moves. Ooh. It just makes me weak at the knees because I feel lighthearted, or lightheaded, just watching these moves. Can you imagine? Now, in the past, I've bragged to my friends about how brave I am about going on roller coasters and how they don't faze me, but I think maybe I was a little bit too hasty to brag because that guy
Can you do that?
I don't think I can even just stay upright on that motorcycle.
No, with him, I think riding a motorcycle, number one, is the first obstacle that he has to accomplish. And to get up on there, it'll take years. And of course, getting rid of that fear of heights that many people have.
And of course, getting permission from the wife. I think that might be the hardest part. But that guy, oof, as if roller coasters aren't enough. There are some pretty exciting thrill seekers out there. All right, let's go on to our next story. This is a good one. There are many animal fans here who watch Viral Feed, and if you've been watching carefully each week, you'll know that we do feature them from time to time. You never can tell how an animal will act, and here's another selection of some of the best videos I've seen recently. Let's have a look. Mr. Beaver, deer, and monkey join us this morning, and have a look at this beaver. They're supposed to be hard workers, but this guy is too busy saying hello to the visitors. See that? Waving hello. Now, how about this? Deer, growing up in the suburban US, I didn't think that they were so well-mannered, but apparently I was wrong because after receiving a couple of snacks, look how respectfully they bow to the visitors. See that? Hello.
Like they must be Asian deer.
Asian and very well-educated deer. Now finally have a look at this. This is the most affectionate monkey I've ever seen. Valentine's Day is of course just around the corner, but I can hardly imagine a sweeter couple than this one. Look how happy the monkey is with the baby. Oh. It's almost like the monkey thinks the baby is its own and has decided to take over. Don't you love that?
I don't know if the last one is cute or a little bit
creepy, maybe?
Does it
is that clean?
Well, those monkeys, they can actually get a bit wild. They're too smart in terms of
they can
getting what they want.
Exactly, potentially be a little bit violent at times, but apparently that's not a problem with this one. And as for the sanitation part, she's picking up, see this? She's picking lice from the baby's head. How much cleaner can you get? That said though, I've had pets in the past and they were never as well-mannered as these deer. So maybe I'm doing something
wrong. Or even that beaver, which says hello to everyone.
So maybe next time I'll have to do better. Alrighty, that's it for me this week with Viral Feed, and I'll see you next week with more. Ciao for now.
So hashtag Curious in Korea, it's that most important time for the bride and the groom, preferably, or maybe the most important day of their lives, and that is the wedding. And when we get to a Korean wedding, there are some extra costs that play a force.
Extra steps to take for the perfect wedding day. Of course, what's the issue here? You seem to have a bit of a problem there, but
well, the bill came out to a little bit more than I had expected, but you can actually work around that. Megan Bowen joins us to talk more about that on hashtag Curious in Korea. Good morning.
Good morning, guys. So as I was investigating, some wedding things, one of the things I found was that many Korean people like to get married in, spring or fall. Apparently, days where, the energy is good. But then upon that, like what you mentioned earlier, I found out about honsu. And I was just so curious what that is because in America, we don't have any terms similar to that.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at the report. When two people fall in love, they'll eventually become a family through marriage. Marriage and wedding customs vary greatly from country to country. There's something that most couples have to prepare for in a wedding in Korea, and that is called honsu. It's considered an essential part of wedding preparations. Honsu refers to gifts exchanged between the bride and the groom called 예물, gifts given to their parents called 예단, and basic furnishings for newlywed life. And it's usually the groom's job to provide the home, and the bride prepares appliances like TV, washing machines, as well as furniture like the bed and makeup table for the new home. And 예물 gifts usually include jewelry or watches, and 예단 gifts are given to the parents of each family as a sign of respect. According to one marriage consulting firm, the average cost to get married, be it for a man or a woman, exceeds 200 million won, or almost $200,000. Apart from the home, which is of course the most expensive factor, preparing gifts and furnishings can cost over 40 million won, nearly 40 grand. That's an awful
Just
lot.
hearing the word brings butterflies to my stomach. Although, however, here in Korea, there's something called honsu. And there's no word for honsu in English exactly, so naturally I had to check it out. So let's go and find out.
So to learn more about honsu, I went right to the source and met the experts who would help me out.
The banker, a loan officer.
A loan officer. No, actually these two lovebirds are planning a wedding for April this year. And because there's so much they need to prepare, they sought out the help of a wedding consultant.
Miso, I think you should pay attention to this whole
Yes,
part.
I should. Very applicable to me.
Because there are many honsu-related companies with very different price ranges, we're consulting with the wedding planner beforehand.
The newlyweds-to-be will have preferences and a spending plan. I'll be helping them find the styles that match their tastes and budget.
And with spring just around the corner, department stores in Korea are busy with marketing events that target newlyweds-to-be. This department store has prepared a mileage service and a wedding fair for brides and grooms in waiting. So during the wedding fair, do you see a lot more customers?
We hold wedding fairs twice a year at our department store in February and October. This year is a popular one for weddings, so we're seeing 1.5 to 2 times more customers than normal.
There were many couples examining the honsu items offered and making their purchases. The honsu items purchased at the department store included things like TVs, refrigerators, dining tables, and vanity tables. And generally, couples selected around 70 items or more. So many.
한국에서 결혼하면 이 가구가 다 새로 하게 사야 돼요?
보통 새 걸로 사죠. 근데 필요한 것만 여기 있는 거 다 사지는 못하고 이제 필요한 것만 골라서.
So you guys went around and saw everything too that you need for after getting married. So what do you think about the cost?
전체적인 예산을 지금 적어봤는데 생각했던 것보다 좀 오버됐어요. 그래서 좀 이야기를 나누고 조절을 좀 해야 될 것 같아요.
Because preparing honsu can get so expensive, the trend recently has been to simplify and downsize. Many soon-to-wed couples skip the 예물 and 예단 or make purchases in groups to save on the cost. So this is an arcade where various honsu-related businesses are grouped together, and they run a membership service that offers discounts of 20 to 50%.
Now we're talking.
Yeah.
그럼 이게 다 순금입니다.
이게 순금이잖아요.
Oh, that's gold?
Wow.
순금은
네.
이제 건강에도 좋고 그리고 이걸 부를 상징을 하는 거니까 아무래도 금시로 하는 사람은 없잖아.
So these are called gold blankets because they're embroidered with gold thread, and gold is clearly very popular in Korea.
Sounds really expensive, you know.
예단에는 그러면
예.
지금 이제 이 이불 말고도 뭐가 들어가게 되는 거예요?
아, 이제 여기 보시면 방석 2개, 벽에 2개, 그다음에 요 이불. 그렇게가 폴 세트예요.
그러면 가격은
아, 요 순금으로 하시면 요게 160만 원이에요. 다 폴 세트가. 요 회원님들은 이유를 막론하고 이게 50% DC를 해서 80만 원이면 다 폴 세트를 할 수가 있어요.
So bedding is a common 예단 gift because it symbolizes wishes for the parents to live long and healthy lives. And so next we visited the 100-year-old Gwangjang Market for a look at tableware, also for 예단 gifts. And this is a luxurious one with pieces for 7 types of banchan.
이런 세트 가격이
이거 지금 한 30만 원.
And the dishes are also decorated with gold, and like the blankets, they symbolize wealth. In Korea, the bride will serve food to her parents-in-law directly after the wedding ceremony. This is called payback. And payback is intended to contain the bride's promise to be devoted, loyal, and hardworking. After receiving a vow from the bride, the groom's parents throw her jujubes and chestnuts in a prayer for fertility.
I got one too many jujubes.
So the bride will also prepare ibaji food, which is food that she will send to the groom's parents, and it contains at least 12 dishes. Why are there so many?
신랑 쪽 어르신들의 대접병 잔치 알아요? 한국 사람들의 잔치면 여러 사람이 나눠 먹어야 돼.
The Yemu gifts between the bride and groom, especially the wedding rings, symbolize endless love, and they are a part of honsu as well. In the past, it was common to purchase a set consisting of a ring, necklace, and earrings adorned with a particular gemstone as a gift for the bride. But nowadays, it's more common for the bride and groom to exchange only wedding rings. Then, with the money they save, they can purchase the things that they want, like those things in the house. Traditional hanbok is also essential for a Korean wedding. The clothes are important not just for the wedding ceremony, but also to wear when visiting the parents of either family. But because they're so pricey and not worn particularly often, these days more couples are choosing to rent them rather than purchase.
잘 어울리시네요.
It's less expensive than I thought, and the explanations will be helpful when we make our choices.
These days, I've noticed that my friends skip many parts of the honsu. Even if it's not much, I think that the basic honsu traditions should be observed.
If it were just the two of us getting married, we could eliminate the honsu. But since the decision involves our parents as well, I think this is all part of the Korean mindset.
Honsu is an important part of Korea's traditions. The task is to find the most reasonable honsu options.
Judging from the look on Misorang's face, she is turned off by the idea.
Right. So now I can't follow. 혼수, 예물, 예단.
Let me walk you through this. Okay, so 예단 is the gift that bride's parents prepare for their in-laws.
Right.
It literally means silk sent as a token of gratitude and also respect. And so it's for the parents of the bride asking their in-laws to accept her with open arms, to welcome her into a new family, right? As a a new member of the family.
Did you go through all of the steps? 예물,
Obviously.
예단.
She has like a PhD in it. The way she's explaining
No. I skipped a couple of the stages.
What did you skip?
Oh, I forget. Don't go. Let's not go there.
I was just curious because if I get married in Korea, maybe I'll have to do some of those things as well.
But as you mentioned in the video, all of these steps are become simplified nowadays. And
simplified.
Simplified.
That's good.
Well, there a lot of couples these days, they're taking their own approach to the culture and tradition of the marriage in Korea. So sometimes they skip a few steps, as you did, and sometimes they modify some of the gifts that are given to make it a little bit more inexpensive. But these days, they say that diamond rings are the big thing, right? Traditionally, we gave 2 gold rings, double gold rings. So nowadays, do you have to do 2 rings with 2 diamonds on them?
No, that's not true.
Not 2 rings, just 1 diamond, and the other one is just like a band type thing. Like
he's upset about something.
What is wrong? But I think still, I would prefer to receive 2 rings than just like the one with the diamond one. But what I did notice,
both of them with diamonds.
Right. But at first I thought honsu was just like so many things that you have to do. Like, why is there a list of things? But what I did notice in there was that marriage in Korea is more than just the 2 people coming together, but also coming together of the families.
Right.
So it's really cool to see that it's just a way to kind of get to know your family and present the gifts to them and kind of symbolize the families coming together. So that was a really awesome thing.
Right, and keeping traditions alive, right? Age-old traditions.
Young, did you do hum? With a squid on your face?
I actually did do that. But we did it a little bit differently too. You're supposed to bring a whole bunch of your friends along, and then you're actually supposed to sell all the items that you have to the family members.
And the girl's friend, the bride's friends usually buy it.
Yeah, but I just made my friend just carry it in, and then we just gave it to him just like that.
Ignore traditions. Ignore the steps.
Just simplify it and just bam. But all the contents of it, of the hum, it was according to tradition. Though.
Really?
Yeah.
I heard that traditionally they use the box, like a wooden box, and put stuff in it. But these days they use suitcases to, put lots of items. Like I heard there was cosmetics and things like that. To me, it just sounds like a great way to prepare for the honeymoon. in the
suitcase, take it right along.
Usually for the families of the bride. So
well, she can take it.
Okay, so silver spoons and silverware basically is sort of a traditional and symbolic gifts as well, right?
Right.
So,
and one thing that I, learned was that I guess the silver, if the food is spoiled or something, I hear that, it changes colors. And so that was so awesome.
Yeah.
I know if I get married in Korea, I feel like I just want to buy it for myself.
Yeah, so it basically oxidizes. So yeah, so you do want a silver spoon, I think. So hence the term a silver spoon in your mouth, right? All right. Well, there's a lot of different traditions out there, I think, in the Korean wedding. But at the same time, you don't have to follow by every single one. So, Megan, if you do get married in Korea, you
don't
can.
Don't be discouraged.
That's I feel discouraged. Like, you said I'm going to feel discouraged too, right?
You can.
Got to start saving up my $40,000.
$40,000 may not be enough. All right, but make sure you make the necessary modifications to suit your budget, right?
Exactly. And choose what's important to you and your family.
Right. Thank you so much, Megan. All right. Well, this is where we say goodbye on this Monday edition of Korea Today.
All right. Enjoy your Monday. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Hopefully, it'll be a little bit warmer by then, right?
Hopefully.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.